Good morning. Wonderful to see everyone. I'm Anna Neverova, founder of Fi Networks, and we're here with two teams and wonderful members of the investing and clinicians community. Would love to start by a round of introductions and then dive into the questions. Sheetal?
Anna. I'm Sheetal Naryani, General Partner and CFO at Global Health Impact Network and Funds. So we're a clinician-based community. We're also actively into venture capital investing. I've been a part of the team for 3 years. Prior to this, my experience in the industry has been primarily on the pharmaceutical side in mergers and acquisitions, corporate finance, and brand management. Thank you.
Janet?
Hi, I'm Janet Moore Goldman. I am a maternal fetal medicine specialist working with UC San Francisco. I've been in practice for many years, and I'm excited to see the advances in the femtech industry.
And then Megan and Annie.
I'm jumping.
Great.
Hi, I'm Annie. I'm a managing partner for Cross Border Impact Ventures. We're a health technology impact investment firm, meaning that we invest in companies that not only are bringing amazing solutions to developed markets, such as the US and Europe, but we also work with companies on fulfilling an impact pledge to bring these solutions into the African market and beyond to achieve more impact. My background is investment management. I joined the industry on the capital market side, working in the hedge fund industry, and have been an investor for the last decade plus. I've also spent some time at Grand Challenges Canada prior to launching the firm to develop some skills related to health impact investing. And I'll pass it over to Megan.
Great. Thanks, Annie. So Megan Dover, junior partner and co-founder of Cross-Border Impact Ventures. And my background, Annie went through our fund, and my background is biomedical engineering, MBA. So most of my experience has been with a medtech startup, management consulting for several years, and then corporate finance, corporate strategy, and M&A. And after that, got into venture investing and also worked at Grand Challenges Canada as part of the whole founding team of Cross Border.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the introductions. And I'd love to just dive in straight into the questions. And most importantly, what trends in women's health are taking you by surprise? You're spending a lot of time looking at this industry, looking at thousands of investment opportunities, but also as Jenna dealing with patients. So what is in the industry that you find surprising today? Perhaps we'll start with a clinician. Jenna?
For many years, virtually no research or technology was introduced in the women's health space. Since I work with high-risk pregnancies, it's particularly notable that in the past, pregnant women were excluded from virtually all studies and generally from product development in technology. So as a broad trend as a clinician, it's been exciting to see new products being introduced that include pregnant women in their marketing and in their usage.
Yeah, I'd definitely love to second that, Jenna. I think one of the things that's really surprised me when we launched this fund, initially from an idea and a concept in 2008, the consistent question that I would get from prospective LPs, investors, was, well, is there really any innovation going on in women's health? Like, why are you launching a fund in women and child health? Like, we don't. So the GPs that were already in this space that didn't seem to have any pipeline, and the LPs just had never seen this. So they were asking like how we would find deals. That was a consistent question. Like, are you going to have enough deal flow pipeline? And I would say at any given time, like all firms, we see lots and lots of investment opportunities, 500 to 1,000 a year, depending on how we measure them. But at any given time, we will be digging into about, into 10 deals and some of them we dig in more and they fall away and so on. But maternal and newborn health are always about half of what we look at. And that just gives a perspective to investors of how much is going on. And those that we choose to work from that bigger pipeline are the ones that are the most interesting. We're seeing new evidence-based solutions that have potential to come to market and addressing, big enough proportions of the market. But that was definitely a bit of a surprise to me how much was going on and how much there is to do. And how the tools that are available today to clinicians, a lot of them were created like 100 years ago. And so I find it fascinating in both a depressing and an optimistic way, because you look at this and you think like, wow, like every other aspect of health has evolved, but this aspect of health is actually kind of primitive.
That part. The most interesting trend is actually an interest in women's health in the first place, which is depressing, as Annie pointed out. I mean, we are in 2024. We'd be discussing the next level of innovations, but right now we're discussing actual involvement, more and more interest in women's health. So it's a good thing that there is more interest. There are more startups that are coming up in this arena. There are more clinicians getting involved, and more female founders, femtech companies that are coming up. But it should have happened a decade ago, but nevertheless, better late than never. So, and yeah, maternal health is definitely an area. And now, actually, it was to my surprise now that Janet pointed it out. It is a trend that I have noticed that maternal health has been coming up, but I didn't realize that was as a result of because pregnant women were not involved in clinical studies earlier. That was a very interesting trend. And that makes sense and it correlates that there has been more involvement, and hence we are seeing a more trend that is a positive trend in maternal health. It kind of now ties into what we are seeing in the market.
Yeah, and I'll just echo, I do think the women's health is a more of a category, and I like the reframing of women's health as more the health of women. I hear this a lot. So women's health is more than just bikini health, it's the health of women. So we have a segment in our fund where it's healthy aging. It's, the health of populations where women play a part. And that represents cardiology, cardiovascular health, oncology, and mental health, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think, women's health is the health of women, and it's a big category and it's good business. And also, I think that we're seeing a perfect storm of technology enabling the personalized medicine aspect of the health of women. So we're able to then have that education piece, money, and technology that are, I guess, helping to then develop the sector. And so it's exciting to see. We are seeing a lot of really great technology, and generative AI, as an example, is playing a part of that.
Thank you. And building on this, Megan, what you just touched on in the health of women, what aspects, what verticals do you feel being disrupted the most or creating the biggest opportunities for innovation? If we could just dive a little bit deeper, perhaps some of the investments you've looked at. So, and I know you all invested in one of the company together, so perhaps you could speak about that as well. But what do you think within health of women is most ripe for innovation and venture investing?
I can kick us off. It's a question that we get often. I find it difficult to answer. It's like choosing your favorite child. Because if we think of the fact that there wasn't much done that included women for the last 30 years because of the exclusion of women of reproductive age in clinical studies, it's really the entire sector that needs innovation. From, if we look to maternal health or reproductive health, I always think of newborn health as a little bit of a segment of women's health because they're so tied together. But it's also going beyond that in both communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. People don't realize that many of the treatments or diagnostic tools that were created for breast cancers were tested on men initially. Well, how can you get to as effective a treatment when you test something on just one gender? Breast cancer is particularly disturbing, just given the fact that the burden of disease, and people don't realize it. I guess men do get breast cancer, but predominantly it's it's more prevalent in females. But so that's a bit of what we see. And when we look to those tools that are designed for the whole population, one of the key areas of diligence that our fund will spend time on is how are patients selected? Do you have diversity with respect to race? And do you also have diversity with respect to gender? And more and more, and there certainly is a selection bias here. What we're seeing is great companies come through our doors who are thoughtful about a sample size selection. And right now, just after we closed Radiant together, we've been working on an early stage cancer diagnostic company, and couldn't be more impressed how the team is diverse. And lo and behold, because they have a diverse team by gender, by race, the sample of patient that they've selected is really truly representative. You have about 50-50 males and females. You have strong diversity metrics. And that's really a nascent trend, I would say. We're still seeing companies where all the patients that have been tested or the majority, are one kind of people, whatever that means, and depending on the environment where the company is being created. But more and more, I'm seeing companies that are really thoughtful about the design of their studies, having a representative sample.
One of the areas that I feel that I see some disruption and focus, rather than disruption of focus that is coming around, is more of something that is not very obviously a problem. For example, especially painful PMS. It's something that has been normalized for ages, but now I feel there is a more interest. Like, let's deep dive into the root causes. What are the possible reasons that can be beyond it? The diagnostic methods, the concept of approaching the clinician early, having those discussions which are no longer taboo or they are being shoved under the carpet. And these discussions are helping give way to more innovation in ideas of early diagnosis, early management, improving the quality of life. It's no longer considered acceptable to have a painful period, to have not have options for a delivery to be as easy as possible. These are not no longer, it's not a norm that, oh, yeah, you're a woman, you are going to go through pain. It is normal. No, these discussions are changing. And this is something that I really like. I mean, there was a startup that we recently had a discussion with. We were talking about how the pelvic floor collapse is an issue that is noticed 4 to 5 years after the delivery of childbirth. It's an issue that was not being addressed because it came such a long period after childbirth. It was something that was like, oh yeah, this happens in a lot of women. The predominance of this issue is very high, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be addressed. There are these kind of discussions are happening and innovations that are coming. This is something that I find really fascinating and amazing.
Would love to hear your perspective, Jen, and your perspective as a practitioner who sees it from the other side, working with patients every day. Where do you see biggest opportunities to make a difference using technology and innovation?
I can address what I've seen already in pregnancy. Again, my specialty, dating the pregnancy is critical. And now I have patients coming in with apps that track their menstrual cycle, fertility apps. Um, Once a woman is pregnant, she can use apps to like look at the development of the baby. Those are very low cost technological advances. And then during pregnancy, honestly, when I was in training, if someone is, it's important to establish if the membranes have ruptured. And when I was in training, the only way to do it is to take a slide, let it dry, look under a microscope, and then technology arose called ROM Plus, and now everyone in the country, if you come in with a question of ruptured membranes, the laboratory does a ROM Plus. So it's become useful. Technology has become incorporated into standard practice quite quickly, and it's been so beneficial. There's a new strategy for postpartum hemorrhage. There's a technique that's now used that addresses that, and it's been incorporated there. So there's such a need that when good technology comes out, it's very quickly adapted by the obstetric practicing community.
You spoke, yeah, any?
I can add a bit to that, and we're seeing that on the M&A side. So generally in our portfolio, what one of the steps that we do in diligence is to try to understand, are the acquirers monitoring this company? Is it on a list, and where does it rank with respect to that list of things they're monitoring? And we did that for Radiant, the one that we closed together recently, and the consistent message we get is if the acquirer is sort of selling something very adjacent to the product. So, we had a recent exit on Sonia to Samsung. They sell ultrasounds. They were looking for the software. Like, they will acquire quite early, and there's a lot of appetite for things that enhance their portfolio of products, and that seems to be driven by the fact that in a lot of cases, these companies are not innovating internally in their women's health products. So they're more likely to acquire. And if it's a little bit further from the things they're selling, but they're in maybe an adjacent sector, they're going to want to see that early traction, early market data. Or sometimes it's not because they're not in the market, but it's maybe they're not sure how the perception of the product will be in the market. And so they want to see a little bit more work. But we're certainly seeing strong appetite from a lot of acquirers to get involved in women's health pretty well across the range of areas where we invest in. And it seems to be driven by just that historic lack of innovation and the desire to differentiate themselves in the market with the newest and latest technologies. And it's from surgical diagnostic tools to AI tools. And it's quite an exciting time for us as an investment firm.
And I'll just add one quick thing that might be interesting. So at our fund, and I totally echo, innovation to serve a need. There's so much unmet need in women's health, maternal health specifically. And we look at companies that have technologies and products that serve an unmet need. And we do this by actually estimating access and translating that to lives saved, lives improved. So we measure impact. That being said, we're a venture fund. We need to see venture returns. And so, whenever we see products, we need to see also a good business model and a path to an exciting exit. So that's one, and I'll just bring up a challenge sometimes in women's health where there's some great products, serves a huge unmet need, but there may not be a viable business model, and there may not be we see a lot of one product companies, which is challenging. And so there's a huge opportunity for a larger platform of women's health products that make the investment viable and exciting for venture. And so that's one piece of advice we give a lot of companies as we talk to great founders, companies that have great products, but it needs to be a big enough play where there can be a path to a bigger exit. So for example, one that came across my desk was Bonafide Health. So it was in the menopause space and it exited for $425 million. So that's a great exit, great profile for women's health, but those are the type of exits we need to see.
Very helpful color, especially on the M&A activity side. And I think you touched also, Megan, on what companies should founders be thinking about today, given where the investment landscape is, where there are emerging technologies. So I'm curious, if you were starting a femtech startup today, what do you be focusing on? And it sounds like it will be a platform, it will be a larger play that is capable of generating venture returns. But I'm curious, what are you excited about, especially if you had to be a founder and step in their shoes, knowing that all the background on the exit side as well?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I can pick up on what Megan said. Beyond, we're still looking for that roll-up opportunity. So if it is out there in the market, we're excited. We know all the things they should buy because we tend to shy away from sort of single device, single low-cost device companies. It's hard to imagine how that works just on its own. But we'd love to see an amalgamation of them because the tools that are available for doctors today are, like I said, primitive is the best way that I can can call some of those tools. But beyond that, I'm really excited about the area of menopause. It may be a reflection on my age, but I would love to see a comprehensive platform come to market for that. Today, if you're a woman in your 40s and you're just on the cusp of menopause, it's coming like a freight train to you, and you're not too excited about it. it's kind of hard to navigate that. Your periods go out of whack, you start to not sleep at night, all these little things. None of them are disease, like we're not talking about like I'm sick and I need to be treated. And if you're in a market like Canada where I live, and I hear it's about the same in a lot of markets around the world, you're sort of trying to navigate your well-being, not so much your disease, but your well-being with, it's like you're trying to figure it out. You're in rough waters, but there's like a few buoys here and there where you get a bit of information and it's piecemeal and it's not really a great process. So I've been interested in the area. I still haven't seen a platform that was comprehensive enough to get me interested. And by comprehensive, what I mean is like if you think of all that's going on during menopause, which by the way, 100% of 50% of the populations go through. This is like a certainty. It's like death, taxes, and menopause for women. We could just, put that as these certain factors of life. And so I'd love to see one that is comprehensive, that looks at issues like incontinence, like menstrual changes, let's call them that, because they change before they go away, cardiovascular, osteoporosis, like all of these issues show up during this time of life. But the platforms I've seen so far own in either like on HRT or just one little piece of it. And maybe it's an amalgamation ultimately that I'm looking for, but I haven't seen that yet, that like super exciting comprehensive solutions. But as investors, we always have this thing that like I'd love to see a company that did this, and that's one that's at the back of my mind. That and the roll up in gynecological tools. Lana, Sheetal, Janet, what are you guys interested in that you're hunting for?
This is actually also a personal interest area, but I would love to work on something that would improve the access to fertility procedures. We have some amazing fertility methods that are there and applied globally, not just in the US. But their access is not that easy. And honestly, the access is only for the privileged, only for the rich. The whole idea of how IVF, egg freezing, all of these came about because a lot of women wanted to be in the workforce. And yes, there was a natural desire. We want to delay childbearing. Does it have a bit of a downside? Yes, it does. But at the same time, we needed the science and the technology to support that decision and not make it the other way around. Now the technology is here, but I mean, at my level, with all the privileges I have, I found the access piece difficult. And if I find it difficult, can we imagine how it is for the other income groups? So we are telling women, hey, yes, we want to give you the freedom of choice. It is your choice when to do it. If you want to focus on this, on your career at this point of your life, you want to have children at a later stage, whatever your decisions would be supportive. But yes, we're not going to make it easy for you. That is a part I would like to make it easy for all women, and especially also make sure that we are looking at. So there are innovations that are happening in different parts of the world which are not being reflected, and they're not really, the data and the information is not easily accessible. I know it's much better than what it was 20 years ago, but it's not exactly the same. The technology sharing, the access issues, they're different. Women in India and Africa have more difficulty in access than compared to a woman in Europe or US. These things need to change. The accessibility is not the same as having the technology present. And that is something that I would love to work on.
And Janet, from your perspective, where do you see doctors adopting technology more rapidly compared to perhaps other verticals? Where do you think the rate of adoption will be higher, the cost will be more attractive from the perspective of really clinicians?
A couple of thoughts. One is there are true problems in obstetrics, things that cause morbidity and mortality. So any product or technology that directly improves outcomes, for example, hemorrhage, sepsis, and severe infections, those technologies are always welcome. From a patient standpoint, patients love home care. The less they have to come see the doctor, wait in the waiting room. So there's been a real increase in home blood sugar monitoring, home blood pressure monitoring. I don't think it's all under one umbrella yet, and it might be very beneficial to have a more robust pregnancy monitoring at home for patients who have that interest. So those are are two areas, something that directly impacts acute healthcare, such as hemorrhage and infection, or detecting fetal distress, which is, something that it comes up in labor and delivery every single day, or for women earlier in pregnancy, self-monitoring techniques, where they can communicate with the doctor and get the access they need to information. The third area I just thought of is predictive technology. For example, ultrasounds are done in virtually every pregnant woman, and if there are metrics that can predict later obstetric problems, that can be very helpful.
And on the predictive side specifically, something Megan also mentioned earlier was the generative AI, generative predictive AI. I'm curious, so much of it, we're seeing so much of it. I'm sure a lot of it is hyped, overhyped. I'm curious where you're seeing real opportunity or maybe examples it being applied really well, back tested, verified, and where patients and clinicians and investors can really trust it. I'm sure as investors, you spend a lot of time thinking about what's hype and what's real. And what I would love to hear where you see some really interesting use cases of it being applied that are meaningful and very outcome oriented.
I can maybe start that one just in terms of where we've dabbled into it and actually paused for the reason where we're still trying to navigate the hype versus the current use case, and it's in mental health. So we are looking at specifically maternal mental health as it relates to women here in North America and then women in emerging markets. And there's the issue we see with mental health is it really needs to be personalized for that individual, and how you go about that when we're looking at technologies that can scale globally. And so we're excited about LLMs and generative AI in the sense that maybe this is the key where a solution can be personalized enough and it can be at scale and economical for the technology company and actually improve outcomes. So, I echo Janet's point where we're also looking for demonstrating improve outcomes. We don't want to just invest in a company to make money. We want to see the translation to improvement in mental health outcomes and connecting to the right clinicians, et cetera. So it is an area where we're still digging in and we're navigating and we're excited about it.
And
Dan,
the other
and
aspect maybe to talk about on AI is, that sort of that large language model aspect of it, where it's a consult with the doctor, and I I get the sense that that's a little bit slower in terms of true adoption. It works in some markets, but as we saw, with certain symptom checkers, sometimes they grow and then they shrink. Thinking of Babylon here, that also sort of had that pattern. But where we've seen a lot of success in terms of AI and machine learning is what I'll refer to as applied AI. And examples of that in our portfolio would be Sonio and Radiant, which we just closed. And what these are, in the case of Sonio, a digital medical device, in the case of Radiant is a physical medical device, where the AI and the machine learning is, inside the box to perform a useful function. So in other words, the AI isn't the thing itself. So Sonio is a software company, like I said, that we just exited, and they had a reporting function for fetal ultrasounds. And on top of that, they have a layer of analytics to pick up to 500 different problems with the fetus. And as smart as medical doctors are, they don't have 600 potential problems in their brain at any given time. They have the ones that they see more frequently. And so the AI can be the backup. And so what I mean by applied AI is that in this case, the primary reason a buyer, a customer of Sonia buys the software is really truly for the reporting feature, for the quality assurance around the exam, to make sure the exams are all taken and that they're of high quality. And the extra feature that AI provides them is that analytics that is, sort of the blind side of the doctor. It really helps to own in on, hey, it could be one of these 5 to 7 problems. Have you thought about these? Right. So it's just an assistance tool for the doctor. In the case of Regan, it's a bit different. The AI is really used to parse through data to separate the signals from the noise from the mother to the baby, a really complicated mathematical challenge. And it's been used also to generate data pairs to help develop those algorithms. Again, an application of AI and machine learning, ultimately the product has to perform on patients. But we're seeing that throughout. And I was mentioning an early stage cancer diagnostic tool we're looking at. Similarly, the AI and the machine learning are used there to parse through very large sets of proteins and data. And ultimately, the product sort of benefits from that AI and machine learning, but it's not just AI and machine learning for the sake, as we said, so far in certain areas of care, we're seeing that the market's not ready to adopt, but certainly that applied AI sector is one where we're very excited about because you can actually make money. And makes no mistake, when we invest to make money. And these are more proven tools that I think medical practitioners are more ready to adopt.
The thought process. I mean, AI is not the solution, it's a part of the solution. It is what helps us reach the solution. It is a tool that will be a part of the product that is designed to support the clinician in the decision making process, in the diagnostic process, in the treatment process. AI does not replace the healthcare system, I mean, or it doesn't replace the clinician's expertise. It is supposed to support them and free up the bandwidth so that they can concentrate on actually troubleshooting and finding the solution. So at our farm, we also struggled with how do we separate from the hype and to what is an actual applied use of AI, and it's actually supporting what the product is supposed to do. And that is when our clinician network really helped us out. It is when we are turning towards them for advice. Is this something that you think will help you in your practice, in your diagnostic? And that was when we realized how our network supports us in helping us decide, yeah, this makes sense. This is something that I can use. This is something that would help us in our practice. So it complete AI is not the finally the end. Oh, this is an AI and hence we should invest. Is this something that is actually helping the end product and hence actually helping the clinician improve the efficiency or the diagnosis?
And I guess my last question to close the conversation with is, where do you see structural or opportunities in the industry, whether it's from capital allocation perspective, research and development, regulatory standpoint, that could help unlock more investments and improved outcomes in the health of women space?
Yeah, this is a bit like I do all our fundraising, so maybe I'll answer it from that perspective. We need to see more engagement from, and I'll be quite specific, from female asset owners in the sector. I think that, the majority of our fundraising efforts, because that's what we can do, is really with funds of funds, established asset management firms and foundations. And, we have some measure of success, but for them, going from sort of that traditional asset allocation model, healthcare is a tiny piece of what they do in their impact strategies. And so I think if we want to move the bigger dollars, I think we need to see some of these ultra high net worth women get involved and finance funds and really create and bolster a new generation of investment managers that care about this sector and that will put dollars to work diligently to earn a return and to generate impact. I think until we see that movement, I think it will be hard to grow the sector because the rest of the remainder, I guess, of the asset management space doesn't seem to be too driven or motivated by women's health. Um, Hopefully, what we'll see with efforts like what we saw the Biden administration do, that put significant dollars to work throughout the value chain curve, going directly to companies, will help make these companies fit the criteria of traditional VC firms, but I still see that businesses that are focused on women's health or child health take a lot longer to raise capital, and until there's more, it's sort of a change, right? Like the entrepreneurs that have these amazing ideas and devices struggle to raise money, not because they're not great companies, but there's just very few GP firms that are focused on the sector and truly understand it and can dig into the risk and parse it because they're really motivated by it. It's not just the thing they do on the side; it's the core of the business. Like if you think of funds like ours or RH Capital or others, right, that are focused on the sector. But we can only be successful if we can raise money, and the big dollars, I think, that are owned by women, I think is the source that I'd love to see get dedicated, to funds like ours and others, and certainly the folks on this call should are well deserving of those dollars as well. I think what we want to see from our firm standpoint is more and more industry colleagues like Sheeta, like Janet, like the co-investors that we have in the Radiant deal be strong and successful and manage more assets so that we see more successful companies come to the market, well financed and with strong teams to have more and more success. Because ultimately women overall benefit from that.
I mean, it is difficult finding investors because if the investors don't understand the problem, they're not going to invest. Before I jump into the women's health comparison, let's compare healthcare and non-healthcare investment. Firstly, healthcare investments, definitely there's a longer time to approval. There are the approval process that a non-healthcare investment does not have. The non-healthcare investments are usually something that the investors understand instantly. Whereas when it comes to healthcare, the technical aspects is not something that an investor would grasp. And like I mentioned initially, women's health has just been increasingly gaining focus. So now we are going into a subset of healthcare, which is just gaining focus. So you can imagine from the perspective of an investor, that like one, we are exposing me to an area that I don't really get. And upon that, into a subsection that has only just started gaining traction in the last few years. Is this where I want to put my money? That is where it becomes a issue. So you need an investors who understand the problem, who also, it would be great, like as Annie mentioned, if they have personal stakes and they understand it at a personal level. Those are the kind of investors we need. Otherwise, it's not going to change. As a result, why did we invest into Radiant? The team that was doing the due diligence at our end, our managing partner, Gary and Janet, both of them are in the area of women's health for years. They're clinicians. They operate. They understood the problem instantly, and they understood what a moving and what a critical aspect this is. Now, if we wouldn't have that, would we have invested? Would we have been able to do an investment so easily? No, it's when you understand the problem is you want to put the money in. So yeah, we need investors who get this issue and we are able to present it to them.
Yeah, it helps I understand the problem and understands the path, scaling, and exit. So it's also, as an investor, you want to add value. And, I think there needs to be more of these generalist funds that, see the path to exit. So we have our work cut out for us to get a great exit from Radiant, as an example, to show the market this is good business and create the playbook so these generalist investors can come in and understand the path to exit, understand there is a huge unmet need. There is a market, there is a great business model, and there is a good ROI. But it's creating, like, we are creating that market as an expert fund in this space. And as a result, the more, well, the hope, our mission is that more of these generalist funds carve out parts of their funds to bring in investors that have this expertise that will improve the flow of capital into the space.
Fantastic. And the last question for Janet in closing, how do you see the collaboration between practitioners and investors involved? Where do you see great opportunities for those two groups to collaborate?
I think Sheetal alluded to this, but clinicians know what they need. They know what areas of clinical need exist, and are quick to grasp the value of an innovation. It is true, I don't have any expertise in finance, and I would not be able to do the analysis of what will it cost to develop this and market it and scale it. So, I mean, they're complementary functions. One is this really a need? Yes, if you can detect fetal distress and save babies and prevent unnecessary C-sections, that's such an obvious clinical need. Analyzing how you get there and it is not in my expertise, but I think that that's how the finance people and the clinicians work together, identify the needs, identify the potential of innovations that have come into our awareness, and then pass it on to the finance people to figure out if it works.
I think I couldn't agree more. I think that investing is a team sport at the venture stage. And I always, look to investments as who else are we working with? What skills do they bring to the table? We have one clinician on our team, but generally the rest of us are finance people. And so we love to see, that there's other teams that bring other skill sets to the group. And it's really ultimately once we've all invested together, we're on the same team, we're on the same boat. Let us make this investment very successful. Challenges will come along. They always do in venture. It's always an adventure. And so I think that's really putting, good talent together to sort it out and ultimately achieve success.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this insightful conversation. Sheetal, would you like to add in closing?
Yeah, I was just going to add that is actually a business model that has worked very well for us. Our LPs, many of them are healthcare professionals, a lot of them clinicians. So when they see our investments and they actually participate, they're not just investors, they are advisors. So this kind of helps bridge on both the sides. They're investing in our fund, they're also taking an active interest in the portfolio, and some of them are actually advising our portfolio companies. It's a very unique model, but this is exactly this was designed to bring in that bridge and that gap, bring both the parties at the same table and actively co-invest together.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Very insightful conversation. I certainly learned a lot. I hope the audience will as well, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.